Test. Okay, looks like we're live with a new edition of Disturbing Trends Live. And I gotta move that hat down so it's blocking my logo. It's bothering me. Anyway, what we're here to talk about today is the Sarah Jeong, New York Times stands by racist tweets reporter. That's the title on the BBC page. Doesn't make any sense, does it? But we'll get to that page in a second. So, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I have the chat open. I'll try to keep my eye on it. Anyone wants to jump in, join me live. We'll have to figure out how we're going to do that, because you didn't coordinate with me earlier. So we're going to go over to the New York Times. Got to change it around. Sarah Jeong, New York Times. How do you pronounce it? Sarah Jeong. Jeong. New York Times stands by racist tweets reporter. Doesn't seem to make any sense. I guess maybe they should put punctuation in there. New York Times stands by racist tweets. Racist tweets reporter. I guess that's okay. Never mind. There's her picture with her red hair. The New York Times has defended a new member of its editorial board who wrote racist tweets about white people. The newspaper's announcement that it was hiring Sarah Jeong met an outpouring of online criticism after her old posts were unearthed. In a statement, the Times said that Miss Jeong regrets her remarks and she had been responding to online abuse. Well, we can't fault her there if she was responding to online abuse. It's self-defense, right? Okay, so we'll give her that. The Times this year fired a new writer after old tweets that caused offense emerged. Quinn Norton was let go only hours after the newspaper announced her hire in February. Hey, here's the thing for Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, let me check something here. I moved it over so I don't want the ads showing up. That's why you're seeing a little bit of this over here. Miss Norton had retweeted a slur about African Americans, had posted homophobic remarks, and said she had befriended neo-Nazis. Well, okay. Miss Jeong wrote in one tweet from July 2014, "Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men." Well, that's not so... I don't like the idea of that. One online critic posted a selection of Miss Jeong's other tweets, which contain obscenities. I have a page here that has them a little bit easier to read. Let me click on them. Dumbass effing white people marking up the internet with their opinions like dogs pissing on fire hydrants. So the only reason I'm censoring myself is there's little ones running around here. Anyway, they're in hearing range. Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men. Are white people genetically predisposed to burn faster in the sun, thus logically being only fit to live underground like groveling goblins? I dare you to get on Wikipedia and play things white people can definitely take credit for. It's really hard. White men are BS. No one cares about women. You can threaten anyone on the internet except cops. Well, that's pretty rough. I just realized why I can't stand watching Breaking Bad or Battlestar Galactica. The premise of both is just white people being miserable. How sad. And here's the last one they have here. White people have stopped breeding. Really. You'll all go extinct soon. This was my plan all along. Oh, sounds like an evil empire in the making. So, give me a second here. I'm going to switch the image back just for a second, so bear with me, because I need to check something. Alright. Okay, we're back with our regular scheduled performance here. So the BBC goes on to say in their, this is their article on it, are white people genetically predisposed? Oh, she's reading all that stuff. Okay. The South Korea-born journalist who was raised in the U.S. also used the hashtag, # cancel white people, and referred to white people as dogs. I know it was hashtag. I just like trolling people. #, kind of like the Pound Me Too movement. She attended Harvard Law School and has previously written for The Atlantic, Motherboard, and The Washington Post, New York Times Magazine. In a statement on Thursday, the newspaper's corporate communications team said Ms. Jeong's journalism and the fact that she is a young Asian woman have made her the subject of frequent online harassment. So, okay, so that's the excuse. We have an excuse. That's great. I like excuses. Can you see that? Is it cut off? Yep, it's cut off. Oh boy, I don't know if I'm going to get the whole thing in there. Oh, geez. Here we go. Statement from the New York Times. That was in... Every copy I see has that little blip in it. We hired Sarah Jeong because of the exceptional work she has done covering the internet and technology at a range of respected publications. Her journalism and the fact that she is a young Asian woman have made her a subject of frequent online harassment. For a period of time, she responded to the harassment by imitating the rhetoric of her harassers. She sees now that this approach only served to feed the vitriol that we too often see on social media. She regrets it, and the Times does not condone it. Well, I'm glad they did not condone racist tweets. That's quite a relief. We had candid conversations with Sarah as part of our thorough vetting process, which includes a review of her social media history. She understands that this type of rhetoric is not acceptable at the Times, and we are confident that she will be an important voice for the editorial board moving forward. Well, I'm going to move you over. Okay, so when we change this, bink. We get back to the article because we read their excuse. Oh, they're just repeating it here. So Stephen Miller writes, if Sarah Jeong thinks white men really suck, wait until she meets the rest of the opinion columnist at the New York Times. That's funny. Oh boy. She included, let me make sure this is showing up. Okay. Can you guys read that out there? I don't see anybody chatting. I might have to take the chat away. See that? It's threatening to be taken away if you don't use it. She included examples of some of the hate speech she had been directed at her online, that she said had been directed at her online, including racist slurs. So what her excuse is that she's fighting fire with fire. And I kind of agree with fighting fire with fire, and sometimes it's appropriate. But being wrong against wrong, is that appropriate? And I'll get to my opinions soon. Conservative critics said the New York Times board decision to stand by Ms. Jeong accounted to an endorsement of discrimination against white men. I don't care about Sarah Young's dumb old tweets, but it's the Times themselves who set the standard, tweeted Fox News columnist Stephen Miller. Washington Free Beacon writer Alex Griswold wrote, "If I ever tweeted something racist back in the day, that's only because people of that race were racist to me. First, I regret it and am now absolved." Well, so now do you understand the logic just in that one statement by Alex Griswold of the Washington Free Beacon, what this means? Okay, so we have somebody chatting. You said communists. I know, not that was Freudian, I guess. Yeah, I noticed. I corrected myself. Columnist. I said communist instead of columnist. Well, we're going to come to a and let me see. That's Frad. It's kind of hard to read it in the OBS. We're getting to another article that I just read earlier. And let's see. Okay. Can you see that? Okay. Yes, anti-white racism exists. Now, before I get into this, what I notice online and what a lot of us notice online is this this new phenomenon of hating. It's okay to hate white people and white men, things like that. And I just want to say that racism of any kind, bigotry of any kind is wrong. Bad. It's something I stand against. And I spent my entire life learning, becoming more aware of things that, you know, as this is a standard boilerplate that everyone says if they mature, that is, you know, as you learn that maybe you're being insensitive to a group of people or what have you, you correct that, you change that, you become more considerate. Consideration is a very good thing. Regulation, not always. For example, the people on the regressive left want to regulate with hate crime laws, and I say consideration, not regulation. So how a lot of us live our lives. This is not just people that are liberals, left. This is people of every stripe. Is that we feel we should treat everyone and ourselves decently. We should treat everyone equally. We should treat people with respect, unless they do something that we should make us want to withdraw our respect, like commit a heinous crime or something, or insult your mama. Okay, but so we have trained ourselves. We have some of us more than others are just naturally respectful of other people, people that aren't like us, people with different skin colors than that we have. Whatever your background is, wherever you're coming from, people with different religions and cultures and nations of origins. And so this is kind of ingrained in, and we have laws. We do have laws where you can't discriminate against people, but it's become ingrained. And now the new fashion on the regressive left is to put down and shit on white people and shit on men. There's the toxic masculinity and the white guilt and the white privilege stuff. Okay, so yeah, there are people that do bad things that deserve whatever. Okay. And those people need to be called out for whatever bad things they do. But I've been noticing I've been noticing in real life, outside of the internet and on social media, that there's this attitude, you know, if a bunch of people on the left, people, progressives, liberals, are discussing a subject, and they're all in complete agreement. And one of them gets just a little out of line, just nuances their answer. disagrees. I don't think, that's not right. We don't tag certain people like that. We don't point out certain people. Then all of a sudden you're alt-right, you're a racist, you're a bigot. So it's I don't know if you're familiar with what Steven Pinker said about reality and yeah, I'll read your thing in a second, but I wanted to finish on Steven Pinker. So if you're telling the truth and you have reality and you get shouted down and you get called a racist and a Nazi or what have you, when people discover the truth, they, well, maybe, the truth is, over there on the horrible extreme right or something. So it's just not helpful. So Frad says, well, we can treat decently other individuals, but conclusions on various groups, ethnicity, and races are possible only on statistics basis. Well, conclusions. Well, yeah, we can treat people well, what I'm talking about is why is it okay to trash white men and it's not okay to trash anyone else? Let me tell you about something where most of us are familiar with, and it's this concept of decency. Okay, and you bring up decently, but the concept of decency. You're in a room with people that are like you. They resemble you in appearance or your backgrounds or your religion, socioeconomic, whatever the hell it is, okay? And somebody starts joking or putting down a group of people that's not represented in that room. So is it okay because nobody there has been insulted, or is it wrong because they've said something that's wrong? And I'm going to use that same logic. It's not a great analogy, but it's that logic that saying something that's wrong is wrong, right? So if it's not okay to put down, make epithets about certain types of people, then that includes everybody. Okay? That's what equality means. If I'm missing the point, and this is revenge, this is, revenge against the evil white race or men or something like that, and that's even more diabolical. I have even less respect for racists that would take that approach. But I think there's a lot of confusion on this, that there's this woke phenomenon, and I just saw this. I'm sorry, I'm not as up on things as why people. It's especially, you can't. White people can't use white people because they're not woke, or I don't know. You're not allowed to use woke because I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so you want your own language and vocabulary. Great, that's fine. So white people. But anyway, so it just seems to be a trend on social media, and it's not the circumstances that I talked about aren't right for anybody. Okay, it's not just, I'm not just picking on people that pick on white people. That's right, I'm not allowed to use that. Anyway, you don't know what my ethnicity is, do you? So I'm going to go on with this. I have other thoughts, and anyone else wants to jump in with their opinions, I'll try to keep this chat thing open. So I'm reading on, oh crap, what is this? National Review. National Review. Yes, anti-white racism exists, and here's, oh, that's Sarah Jeong. Oh, okay. Sorry to keep picking on you, Sarah. Let's see if this is showing up in the window. I wouldn't have kept her on there. We don't want to be beating up on poor Sarah. The denigration of human beings works its own harm. So I'm gonna skip over this paragraph because it kind of repeats what was in the BBC article. The Times is standing by tired. Good. It's time to end termination by Twitter and debate. Bad ideas head on as for whether the Times and other elite outlets will display the same fortitude when a conservative is the target of online outrage. I'll believe it when I see it. So who's writing this? Who's writing this? David French. Okay. So sorry, David. Forgot to mention your name. But it's one thing to argue that Jeong should be given a chance to prove herself at the Times, and another entirely to justify the content of the tweets themselves. Yet that's what's part of left. That's what's part of left wing. I don't get that. Yet that's what's part of left wing. Twitter did. That doesn't seem to make sense. What about you guys? Makes sense? You know, I gotta move this out here. Part of left wing. Twitter did. I don't get it. Sorry, this is sounding silly because I'm trying to read their. Yet that's part of left wing. Twitter did. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm slow. The argument isn't just that the tweets were satire. Rather, numerous liberals took on the very notion that anti-white racism exists or matters at all. These tweets are representative of the idea. And this guy says, Zach Bucamp, a lot of people on the internet today confusing the expressive way anti-racists and minorities talk about white people, with actual race-based hatred for some unfathomable reason. And he's got to be shaking his fist in the air. Get off my lawn. Okay. So David S. Wacom says, Dear white people, racism is about the powerful keeping down the powerless. Well, I just happened to look up racism in Merriam-Webster a few minutes ago before I went on live, and it didn't say anything about powerful keeping down. It said people discriminating against others based upon their appearance. We generally are the powerful. We generally are the powerful. Oh, you are, David? I'm not. Are you the powerful, David? Okay. Well, then stop putting us down. White people isn't a slur. I don't know why they feel they have to do the whatever, PPL, instead of just writing people. I guess it's cool. White people isn't a slur. Does anybody say that white... Well, maybe PPL is a slur. Maybe I'm not up on the latest slang stuff. FAG and the N-word are slurs because they subordinate. Well, I don't know if they subordinate, but they are meant to be hurtful. And Frad says, as usual, leftists have a problem with a dictionary. They do. So, okay, let me finish this. Your moral equivalence is nonsense. Oh, I'm so sorry. Reverse racism isn't a thing. Well, we agree on one thing there, David S. Wacom. Reverse racism isn't a thing. You're right. I agree. Only racism is a thing. Okay? So, I happen to own a dictionary. And well, I don't even use it because they're all like they're online, or you right click on a word and it tells you this is 2018, so it's not like those old days where you had to walk out to the barn and open up the big book and look through and find the word. And remember all those old day things with telephones with dials and pound signs and stuff. So this is the David is taking the direction of basically the postmodernist thing of power, power plus whatever equals racism. It's not even... Okay, so here's my take. I want to go after that dictionary thing. Thanks for pointing it out, Frad. F-R-A-D-D. So we changed the meanings of words, and so the judge is declaring that you murdered that family in the middle of the night, and you say you stand up. Well, Judge, me and my group of online friends, we don't. We define murder as you're innocent as charged, you may leave the courtroom. I know that's silly, but so is redefining words that are in the dictionary. So petition Oxford and Merriam-Webster to get those definitions changed, so we can all agree upon something. If we don't have a something we can agree upon, then we can't communicate. Okay, so I'm speaking in the English. I'm talking in the English language. Not good, apparently, with grammar like that. But so I'm using the English language, and so the people that understand English are listening to me. If my words don't have meaning, then this sentence doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's get back to reality. David French. One doesn't have to equate anti-white statements with Stormfront to observe that there is a strain of visceral dislike and disgust for white people in some quarters of the identity politics left, and that dislike and disgust is toxic. Patrick Klepek. It's almost like some of them been treated terribly by white people their whole lives and have a legitimate reason to be upset with the way white society has turned a blind eye to it. Gosh, what a stretch. Oh my. Yeah, well, good comparison. Well, here's the thing. Let me point out something else here, and I think Frad will probably, judging by your comments, will maybe identify with this, and maybe others out there. So there is this thing called fake news, which is a real thing. So there is propaganda, there is opinion journalism, there is misleading journalism. There's just tons of different categories. I don't want to get into every friggin' category of types of, from decent, well, researched journalism all the way out to just, crappy tabloid journalism to actually incorrect or fake stories. So now fake news has been weaponized against the mainstream press. Why is that? Okay, why is that? Well, let me remind you. Because they stand by racist tweets reporter. Wait. Oh, geez. I'm losing it here. They stand by. That's why. Okay, so, well, no, that specific issue, maybe not. But this is, so, good comparison, no fundamental difference with murder. So, this is where we have, if we don't have words in common, we can't communicate. Okay? And so, what is journalism? It's words, okay? I'm talking to you in the English language. I'm reading an article in the English language, okay? I know another language. I don't really that good at it, but English, So these comments echo ideas that have existed for some time. Essentially, they're tied to the notion that anti-white rhetoric and ideas can't be racism because such rhetoric is justified and or not connected to power. Oh, that's that power thing again. Okay. But this argument confuses the gravity of an offense with the existence of the offense. Good point. A powerless person's hate may not harm the powerful, but it is still hate. And there's my point. They've made it for me. Right? Remember what I said earlier? You're in a room full of people. They're all like you. You know, it's the whatever club. It's the backgammon club or the I don't know, the haircutters club or whatever your club is, the historians club, the hip hop rap club, and everybody's like you. And somebody takes a shot at somebody that's not represented in the room. It's wrong because someone isn't directly insulted. It's not okay, right? This is what we're told, and this is what I agree with, right? So hate is still hate. These are truths. The essence of bigotry is to look at the color of a person's skin and, on that basis alone, make malignant judgments about his character or worth. How many times now, every day, on social media sites, are we put down because we're privileged white people, white men? And it's extending. This this privilege is extending to, say, for example, okay, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but say with lesbians, because with the trans issue, and they have to appreciate another lesbian with a penis, a woman with a penis. Otherwise, they're transphobic, right? So now they're getting attacked by the wokesters. Okay, so Frad says powerless hate. Leftists are supported and donated by every multi-billion corporation, multi-million-dollar billion-dollar corporation you could think of, and by governments. They are the mainstream. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Yeah, it is kind of mainstream, and but you know what? There's politics and culture is like a pendulum. We've been through in this. I don't know what country you're from, Frad, but there was a time where we had, you couldn't say things on, certain language, whatever, and then they tried to ban video games and music or whatever. That whole thing that went on, I think in the 80s. I'm not sure, but then before that, there was all the, like porn. Porn was like evil, and there was a big crusades against it. And now everybody's like, it's the internet. It's like 90% of the internet. What's your problem, Anita Bryant? Am I right? Moreover, it is simply false to excuse anti-white racism on the grounds that people of color lack power. There are certainly many millions of vulnerable and marginalized individuals in this nation, and they are disproportionately, though not entirely, black and brown. But when anti-white sentiment is embedded in the New York Times editorial board, it's no longer powerless in any meaningful sense, and this is what Frad is talking about. Similarly, when it reaches the heights of government, the Academy, or the bestseller list, it's no longer remotely powerless. And I gotta move up this thing here. Remember, powerless. Okay, is that showing up? Okay. I'm going to swap out just for a second. Bear with me because I need to check something. And I don't want you to see what I'm switching over to. My earlier live stream efforts were in revealing personal data. Okay, so so none of this should be taken as an argument that power doesn't matter. Of course it does. Power matters, and so does purpose. Nice. That's why no one should compare Jeong's comments to the racism you see on Stormfront or to the racism we saw on display in Charlottesville last year. Yeah, you know, they're really, you know, nobody's denying that there are true racists out there. But what we're saying is some of those, it's not just white people, W-Y-P-P, how do you spell that? That white people thing? It's not just white people. I'm sorry, I just found out about that white people thing. It's just hysterical. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm probably abusing it. So where did I leave off? Okay, Charlottesville. Racism married to violence or violent intent is categorically different from the anti-white racism you see in certain quarters of the elite identity politics left. That's what Frad was saying. Similarly, racism married to state policies, especially state policies of the relatively recent American past, which continue to have malignant effects on poor and disadvantaged Americans, is categorically different from the anti-white racism that exists in parts of the academy or in segments of American media. And I will just say once again that any kind of hatred, any kind of, I'm going to take these headphones off, any kind of talking shit about anyone based upon something they were born as or with, or their faith, what they believe. So like Martin Luther King, content of your character. So you do things that no longer are deserving of respect, right? Then you get what you get, right? And you might deserve it. So we see people, I meet somebody that I know nothing about. Am I supposed to judge that person? I know nothing about it, never met them in my life. They're standing in front of me. Okay, so answer that. Am I supposed to judge that person? I haven't told you what they look like. So answer that. And I'm talking to the regressive left right now. I'm not talking to average people that have common sense. What am I supposed to do to that person? There's a person standing in front of me right now, right this very moment. There actually is. How am I supposed to judge them? Am I supposed to judge them? Now I can start telling you what sex they are, what skin color they are, what their education is, what their religious or non-religious. I can start telling you that stuff, and then you can cue me in on when it's okay to start talking shit about them. Okay? Now you can leave the room. Thanks for standing there, being my. There was somebody just standing here. I'm not making that up. Actually, there's a house full of people, and I've asked them to leave this area, so because there was a lot of noise when I first started. So that's really the point. That's what we get. That's the brass tacks. That's what we get down to. How do you want to be treated? The golden rule thing, right? Goes back thousands of years. How do you want to be treated? So the shit we see online against people because they're white or they're men. Let me check if we're still alive. I'm not seeing. Give me a second here. We had some problems. Live stream health is poor. Oh, well, we're still going. Okay. Just checking that because I got kicked off a few times last time I was streaming. Oh, I got to put the article back up there. Okay. Anyway, let me get back to the article. I was rambling. Unless you want me to ramble. The threat of anti-white racism, except in rare cases, isn't violence. It's not systematic oppression. There's no realistic scenario where the tables are turned and black Americans visit on white Americans a reverse version of the worst aspects of American history. The problem with anti-white racism is that it runs directly counter to the efforts to unify in spite of that history. Get it? It runs counter to the efforts to elevate American culture. And yes, it can and does create individual injustice in those instances where anti-white racism manifests itself in more than just tweets and academic journals. So you notice I'm making mistakes here when I do my scripted videos. I edit those mistakes out. There's my trick. So finally, to indulge at all the notion that injustice, even systematic injustice, can excuse or legitimize hatred against a class or group of Americans is to open Pandora's box. I've seen it argued across the breadth of the web that anti-white sentiment is a legitimate and understandable response to the actions of white people and white power structures. But think about this argument. Veterans of our Middle Eastern wars have seen jihadist horrors on a scale that most Americans can't comprehend. It is a legitimate response for a veteran to go on a Twitter screed about canceling Arabs or calling them groveling goblins. Should a white victim of a black criminal draw conclusions about black people more generally, even if he can point to disproportionate levels of violent crime? What do you guys out there think about that? Huh? What do you think about those apples? Where did I leave off? Oh, there it is. Bottom of the page. Oh my, I gotta get rid of this thing here. Violent crime. Where did I leave off? Oh my. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, they screwed me up with their little ad here. So I think we're at the end of this article. Death of a Nation. Oh boy, I don't like the sound of that. Oh geez, I'm gonna have to get that off the screen. So of course not. A healthy society urges people to reject unhealthy temptations to generalize, and instead urges that we treat our fellow citizens with a degree of grace and to judge them based on their individual actions. Any categorical hatred or disgust stands directly against this virtue. So yes, anti-white racism is real, and Americans can and should reject it while still keeping in mind matters of gravity and proportion. Are we really so far gone that we can't condemn taking joy in being cruel to another person on the basis of their race? It's time to understand a fundamental truth. The denigration of human beings, yes, including white human beings, those horrible bastards, works its own harm. So I'm going to take that off the screen. The one thing that comes up, always comes up in discussions. Okay, so you know what? The white people have been, we've been putting down, we've been keeping other species down for thousands of years, and slavery and stuff. So you know, so you're all guilty, and you have privilege and stuff. Okay. All right, well, usually, like, I'm making a funny voice, but that's usually, like, white people saying that, other white people, about white people, you know? That's this new the soy-based coffee latte thing that they're talking about. Yeah, I made it funny. I don't see anybody commenting. Maybe we got logged off here. Let me check. Oh, shit. I forgot to announce. I forgot to announce it on Twitter. The stream health is crappy, but we've been going strong for 44 minutes. It's at the red instead of a green Twitter. Oh, it just turned to yellow. We are lucky, aren't we? Yes, yes, yes. Maybe more people will show up now because I forgot to announce on Twitter that we were going live. So, the when I mentioned earlier something we all know, this is not, you know, this is not some major insight, but the pendulum swings. And when you say it's okay to talk shit about a group of people based on their either their gender, their sex, you know, men, or their skin color, white, what you're telling people is it's okay to do that. So we've come a long way, babies, and this is what some people are saying. It's okay. They're setting the standard. I see it every day on my feeds, my social media feeds. And I see white people trashing other white people. You know, you're you know, this or you're that, and it's always really derogatory. I honestly don't see it. I see blacks being more respectful. This is from my perspective. I don't know what anybody else is seeing. But it's usually the whites that are beating up on the other whites. So Frad says, so basically they say that multiculturalism is punishment for what whites did before. Well, that's I think that's kind of like saying you having to sit through some long recital of your child. You have to wait an hour and a half for your child to go out and play the cello. Your torture is punishment for making your child learn the cello. Maybe it is. Maybe they are saying that, but I don't think this multiculturalism issue. Look, we're in the U.S., okay, and so we come from all over the world. You know, when they say melting pot, right? I don't know if we're the most. There are probably more multicultural countries than the U.S. But as a means to an ends, it's an ideology. Okay, like in Europe, like in the UK. Okay, so what you have is, if you have multiculturalism, because that's what history gave you, all the different groups from all over the world, and in this country, mostly Europe, but all over the world, okay? That's what you have. It shouldn't be a goal. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong, if I'm wrong. Putting the headphones on again, see, make sure it's working here. Taking them off because they suck. So what do you think? Any comments out there? I see people are out there, but Frad's the only one with the courage to say anything. And you can keep saying things. Well, see, nobody said I was wrong, so I must be right. Right? Okay. Yeah, so it's really, to me, it's actually embarrassing. It's embarrassing to see other white people. Yes, I'm a white person. Yes, I represent every white person that has ever existed. So it's actually embarrassing to see other white people behave this way online, and in person. Okay, it's not just it's probably mainly an online thing, because everyone gets to be, you know, cultural heroes and keyboard warriors. But it's really embarrassing to see people behave that way. To me, it's like they're groveling, and it's mostly wrong, because I don't say shit like that about any other class or type of people. I do criticize things. I think criticism is okay, right? So you say, well, you can say, okay, I met a white person who, you know, blah blah blah. But when you say white people, there's not something, they you can't pick one religion, just like with Islam, it's not a race, right? So we're going to pick on a race. Well, it has nothing to do with Islam. That's a religion, okay? So I'm critical of a lot of religions, and I'm critical of Islam, mainly critical of Islam, but I said nothing about a Muslim. Okay, Frad said they exactly say that it's a goal and it's and it's a strength of a society, and at the same time it's a punishment. It doesn't compute. Well, yeah, are they saying it's a punishment? I know the strength of society, and look, when you have a diverse group of people, I guess there's something good to say about homogeneity. You have countries that are very homogeneous, like Japan, and I guess some European countries still are. I'm not sure. Other parts of the world, I don't know about other parts, like South America, North America, right? But maybe there's some qualities about that society that make it unique, that they have strengths. And so, yeah, okay, so multiculturalism, I don't know what country you're from, Fred, but so I don't see a problem with the people that live around me as I'm sitting here, okay? It's quite a diversity where I live, okay? And I don't see it as a bad thing. But what you're saying is the goal. If the goal was to make my neighborhood, the goal is to make my neighborhood one type of people, is just as wrong as what people fought against for decades of keeping certain people out of neighborhoods, right? So there's no reverse racism. There's racism. And these goals that you're talking about, I know that's pertaining, you might be from Europe, okay? Because that's what I keep reading about and seeing in Europe. And which is reflected in the BBC's own equity goals for hiring. That's something we've been talking about, and any Doctor Who fans are been affected by their recent equity hires, and their stroll down multiculturalism lane, because what the BBC is doing is a reflection of what Frad is talking about. They actually have, if you watch some of my videos, and there should be links in them showing that they have charts saying this percent, this type of person, we have to have this percent by 2020. We have this percent of this type of person, people of color, they call it now. Women have to be 50% of every job, no matter what their qualifications. And so this is what we talk about when we talk about targets and goals. My neighborhood is perfectly fine the way it is. Now, you don't know what the makeup of my neighborhood is, whether I'm the majority or I'm a minority. But either way, it's fine, okay? And I've lived many places where I've been the minority and I've been the majority and I've been somewhere in the middle, okay? So, let's see. They exactly say that it's a goal and it's a strength of a society, and that at the same time it doesn't compute. Right, I'm talking about multiculturalism as an ideological goal that has been implemented in surroundings that are not like that. So you have say pick a country, England, UK. Let's talk about the greater, not just England, UK. And so you have British, Scottish, Welsh, Irish, Northern Irish, we're talking about the UK, and people that are native to that country, that their family's been there for generations or centuries, and you say our goal is to have less people that were born in Britain of British ancestry by a certain date. That's what Frad is talking about, right? Multiculturalism. And I think that's why a lot of people wanted to get out of the EU, because was that Barcelona 95? Was it 95? Somebody help me here. That agreement. So, yeah. So, as a goal, it's the same thing to me, okay? And I'll say it's wrong because everyone that's decent agrees that it's wrong. That when you keep people out of jobs, out of neighborhoods because of how they were born or how they believe. I think it was 95. And that's wrong. I disagree with that. The racism and the bigotry of the past. I think it's wrong. But they're bringing it back now under the name of multiculturalism. As Frad says, an ideological goal. Now, like I said, there is a good way to look at it. And it's the way that normal people look at it. Okay? So we did not plan the country I live in. And there are people around that are mostly good people. I'm sorry, I'm not a pessimist. I seem to think that there's somebody standing in front of me again. Should I judge them? I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, maybe it was 92. Barcelona 95. It's on my the link is on my live stream video with Mandy Baldwin, I think her name is. She had mentioned it, and it's pizza's coming. I'm gonna have to get off soon. I'm hungry. So anyway, so let's try to wrap this up, because I know, you know what, there's tons of articles about this and everybody's freaking out over this whole New York Times fiasco debacle. Let me close out some of these tabs. Bing, gone. What? Yeah, it was nice nice having a discussion with everybody out there, and it was nice. Thank you for Frad for offering your thoughts on this, and you know, and focusing the discussion, because that's how sometimes, you know, I had an agenda going in. I wanted to talk about a couple these articles I read in the subject and my impressions, you know, but so you added to it, you steered it, and I appreciate it. I still think it's 95. But anyway, I'm being surrounded by fellow human beings, so I'm going to, rather than make them all stay quiet, especially the wee ones, I'm going to be wrapping this up. Anybody else out there have anything else to say? Or you, Frad, do you want to, am I pronouncing your thing right? Frad, F-A-R-D-D. 2 D's, Frad, Frad, you emphasize the D. Anyway, Frad, anything else you want to say before we wrap this delightful conversation up? This meaningful exposition into the unknown. I'm wrapping this up soon, so you won't have to be quiet for very much longer. But thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh. Well, that's great. I love it. I love pizza. I love pizza. Yum yum.
No, we got you a cheesesteak.
Oh, yes.
Mushroom with no onions.
Nothing really, just buy and thank. Well, thank you, Fred. I got a cheesesteak on its way. Yum yum. So I will be signing off now. Goodbye to all. Farewell. Stop.